right, Mike, I think we can go ahead and get started.
Yeah, that sounds great. Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to participate in this discussion. And really, this is a discussion that we hope to have with you. And I would say, really, at any point in time, if you want to ask questions, feel free to reach out and let us know because I feel it's always I'm very comfortable just while we're presenting stuff. If you have a question, just we're happy to do it. But let me first introduce myself. I'm Mike Donahue. I am the program director for the Computational Engineering and Science Masters here at Brown University. My background is engineering. I teach at the undergraduate level. I also teach at the graduate level. So I'm really familiar with a lot of these topics. Victoria, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, that would be great. So my name is Victoria Bray. I am the Associate Director of Recruitment, and I work with all of the School of Engineering master's programs. If prospective students have questions about the program, the application process, or anything like that. So I'll be talking more later about resources at Brown broadly for master's students, and then also the application timeline.
Awesome. Well, let's go to the next slide to kind of talk about the agenda for today. So basically what I'll be doing is spending most of the time talking about the program structure and doing like a deep dive on that. I continually add more slides because I've gotten a lot of great questions. So I figured like I'll just add some slides. And actually, we just did orientation for our new students, and they like some of the new additions. So I figured I'd try them out for this call. Then Victoria will take over and talk about Brown, talk about the application requirements. Then we'll go to just a live Q&A. So let's go through the program structure and go to the student outcomes. So basically where we always start with this program is why do you need to get a master's degree? Like, you've got an undergraduate degree, isn't that good enough? And do I really need a master's degree? Well, what we find is that for our students, there's really two big outcomes that people are looking for. It's either they want to go get a job in industry. And usually it's mostly in the tech industry for the most part. So they want to focus on tech. Sometimes we want to go into research labs, but not too often. And then with tech, it's also both the tech giants, so the big ones like Google, Amazon, those type of folks. And then a lot of people actually are going to startups. A ton of our graduates go on to startups, which makes a ton of sense because there's certainly a lot of startup activity in the tech industry. And then what we found is a lot of people go into PhD programs. Now, what we find is that because you could argue like, well, but Mike, they can go straight out of undergrad into PhD programs, and that is correct. you can definitely do that. But a lot of times what we find is people who, let's say they graduate undergrad and then they apply to PhD programs and maybe they don't get into the one that they love or the one that's really top on the list. We had one person who the only two schools that he wanted was either MIT or Stanford, didn't get in straight out of undergrad, did the master's program and then got into MIT. So that's why people come to do this master's program. So now let's go to the next slide to say, okay, well, great. If these are the outcomes that we're trying to achieve, how does Brown University support your activities in these areas to be able to achieve this outcome? So first, everybody talks about is courses. That's usually where everybody starts. It's like, okay, I've got to take some courses, artificial intelligence, machine learning courses, predictive analytics, things along those lines. To really be able to show that I can do these computational engineering and science positions. The other thing is we also this is a thesis program or a non-thesis program, but if somebody is very interested in pursuing a PhD, many times they find that doing a thesis would help them in achievement of that PhD program. We also have students who they don't do a thesis and they still get into PhD programs, and then we also have students who go into industry and they do a thesis because they think it'll help with the industry job. So at the end of the day, the thesis is support that we have to be able to do this. And you will get a faculty member that will support you for your thesis. So that is absolutely something that we put resource against. Then there's work experience. Now, work experience can come in many forms. It can come in the form of either summer internships between like your first and second year. We also have an experiential learning program, which is more of like a co-op program. And that's a program that we'll talk a little bit in more detail later, but it's where you actually get course credit and then you get the work experience up to 6 months with some type of company. So that works out really well. Then we have the research. So beyond the thesis, really anybody in the program can do research. Brown is a very strong research institution. So regardless of what outcome you're trying to do or what track that you're on, everybody's welcome to do research. Now, in addition, we have what we call is PhD workshops. So what we find is that many times students are mystified by like, how does it actually work? Like in terms of being able to get a PhD, and it's a pretty non-obvious process that goes on, and it's a pretty non-obvious thing that you have to do. So we really find that taking people through a series of workshops that students can really start playing around with. Okay, how do I need to think about applying to a PhD program? So we have several during each academic semester to be able to talk through that. Then we also have the Career Center, and the Career Center is kind of the same thing in terms of the PhD workshops demystify how to get a PhD. The Career Center is all about demystifying how to get a job in the U.S. Because that continues to change. I've had a lot of discussions recently with students who are returning this year from internships or returning from different positions. And I say, oh my gosh, it was very different than what I thought it would be. And so we sit down and chat about that. So we really try to help students really learn about what it takes to obtain a job, a technical job in the US. So let's go to the next slide. So what I tried to do here was just kind of show like how you can go through from a PhD perspective or from a professional perspective, how each one of these different areas of support, it will impact your decisions about what you're going to do. So you can kind of see that, of course, courses are ubiquitous across both. Thesis is pretty narrowly focused. I'd say only about 10% of our students actually do a thesis. So it's not used that often, but it's really available to any student at any point in time. Research, now once again, with research, you can do just research in the labs. You can also do these 2 courses where you can get credit for your research. So if you're doing research that's going against a PhD, then you can do this course and it will be counted as a course credit for your 8 courses that you have to take to achieve the master's program. And then you can do it twice for the research. Now on the work experience side, we have a similar thing where we have this experiential learning course. And that's once again during the academic semester, up to 6 months in length. And then you do that in concert with another course that you're taking typically. So that's available to you as well. Then in terms of PhD workshops, they're open to everybody, but usually it's just PhD folks that go into them. The career services, actually, it's interesting because on the professional side, there's career services. And actually, we do have resources, I'll show you later on, in the Career Center where they're focused on helping PhD students get placed into the programs as well. So that actually you get that on both sides. So that's something that's really important. So let's go to the next slide, because what I find is that students coming from typical undergraduate STEM backgrounds, it's a bit of a jarring experience to come into the Brown Master's program. So what I try to do here is just show like, what's the student experience like? So as an undergrad, it tends to be, at least the university I went to for my engineering degree, relatively impersonal, very structured. Man, you know which courses you have to take, and it's all laid out. You get like, a little bit of, courses that you can take outside of your requirements, but not many. And typically, you have to select courses. So if you're a CS concentrator, it's off from the CS department. If you're an engineering concentrator, it's from the engineering department. So it tends to be very structured from that side. Very limited research opportunities. When I was an undergrad, I didn't really hear about anything from a research perspective. And then you get no advising because you really don't need anything because everything's mandatory. Like, okay, here's a mandatory course you have to take. You get a couple options. We don't care what options you take, so you don't need any advising on that, and off you go. Now, with the Brown Master's Program, it's very, very different. Very personal. You get a lot of people here that can help you. It's very unstructured. There are no required courses. You have to pick every single one of your 8 courses. We do not tell you which courses you have to take, and then you can pick your courses from many departments. You can take courses from the applied math department. You can take courses from computer science. You can take courses from engineering. They're all available. And actually, I did a bit of a survey, and our students so far to date in whatever the 5 years that we've had this program, they've taken over 100 different courses. So it was shocking to me, like all the different courses. We're going to spend a lot of time talking about that. Tremendous research opportunities, and then you get significant advising, because even we were just talking, Victoria and I, about the people having to put together their course plans. Because usually, when you first come to Brown, you have to put together your course plan for all your time here. So for the two years, and so you have to select the 8 courses. Now, at any point in time, you can change those 8 courses, but you have to select them. So we actually just completed all the course selections for the computational engineering program just 2 days ago. So we've been very busy with that. That's the difference in terms of the experience. Let's go to the next slide. A little bit more on the program itself. So for us, we do both a spring intake and a fall intake. Doesn't make a difference to us. It's really up to you. The program length is it could be 3 semesters, it could be 4 semesters. You just have to get eight courses in. It's your choice as to what you want to do. Obviously, 2 courses for 4 semesters generally works to get you to the 8. But some people like doing three courses, and that you can do that. That is fine. That is like no problem at all. Then in terms of the coursework, as I talked about, all electives. Like you get to pick everything. You can customize this program to exactly the specific industry that you're going into, the specific research that you're trying to do, whatever you want to do. There is the opportunity for the faculty mentored research, and then industrial focused experiences are there as well. Now, in terms of prerequisites, I would say pretty much all the candidates that we've had come through so far and even applied to the program have all been STEM. We don't care whether you've got an engineering degree or applied math or mathematics or really any of the physical sciences. It's fine, and because you can definitely do computational engineering and sciences across any of those areas. So any undergraduate concentration is fine. In fact, we have people who come in with a CS background and decide that they want to do computational fluid dynamics. Who would have thought? And then they make that transition. They do computational fluid dynamics, take a lot of engineering courses. And then actually this person, she came in thinking that she was doing computational fluid dynamics to go and work at a Formula One team. But then she found her true love, and she found her true love as being research and going for a PhD program. So that's the other thing, is we have tremendous flexibility throughout this program, not only changing courses, but also changing program tracks. And really at any point in time during the program, you can do that. And then in terms of the requirements, we prefer a GPA above 3.0. That's not a hard line. We'll let anybody apply, but that's just guidance that we have. And obviously we're not, Victoria will tell you this, but we don't do GREs, so we don't need to submit a GRE. You can if you want to, but it's not required. So let's go to the next slide, because I thought it'd be good to really say, okay, what's different about us? Well, we're really good at delivering the student outcomes. We've had great industry positions, great PhD acceptance. The big surprise actually is about 60% of our students go on for PhDs. We didn't think it was going to be that high, but that's where they tend to go. Now, let's be honest, there are people that, like after they get their degree, they go for industry, and then they go for PhD, and then wherever they get the better offer, that's where they go. So that's fine too. we're a very small program. We're just like 20 to 30 students, a very small. And then within your courses, it's typically 5 to 15 students per course. So you get to know the other students pretty well, you get to know the professor pretty well. Now, the interesting thing, even though it's a small program, it's a large network, because what happens is we're different. When you take our master's level classes, you will be in there with people from other master's programs at Brown and also other PhD students at Brown. So from that perspective, you really get like a little bit more of a diverse group. And we really, when we build our master's program courses, we build them so that they can accommodate master's students, PhD students, and quite honestly, even every now and again, we get undergrad students that will take these courses as well. So you'll be able to build a network beyond just the small program. But I would say tremendous flexibility. Like you have lots of flexibility in terms of choosing between the different program tracks. What's your industry that you're trying to go after? What's your research that you're trying to go after? We've had people go into PhD programs in computer science, in applied math, in engineering. Doesn't make a difference to us. So just a lot of flexibility, and then like shockingly over 100 courses that you can take and get into. So that's like a big number of courses, and it kind of shocked me when I actually did the analysis. And then it's a resource-rich environment. You've got a lot of faculty advising, a lot of advising from a career perspective as well. And then let's be honest, you've got the benefit of the Ivy League alumni network, where Brown alumni are really in pretty much most industries, most areas, and they love talking to current students. So that's always a big thing. Let's go to the faculty, because obviously with a small program, you're going to get to know the faculty really well. So here's just a small sampling of the different faculty that we have, and these are the ones that spend more time with our program. And then the two faculty advisors. So when you submit your academic plan, it's really, you can either get it approved by Professor Baslovs or Karniadakis. Either one's fine. It's interesting. Sometimes they disagree, but I always go with it. If you get one of them to say yes, then it's approved. So you're fine. If we go to the next slide, as I stated earlier, is we give you course options from School of Engineering, Applied Math, and Computer Science. And actually, we kind of push you to ideally take at least 2 courses from each one of these different departments. So that's a big push. Now, if we go to the next slide, this is the analysis that I did, where it shows, like, within Applied Math, how many courses we're taking, within CS, how many courses, engineering, and then others. Like, because actually, if you can convince your academic advisor to approve any class, like, then it's approved. You don't have to go anywhere else. But you can see that that really the highest one is probably more engineering, about on average 3.2 of the 8 courses are from engineering, 3.0 are from ATMA, 1.2 are from CS, and then 0.7 from other departments, to give you like an 8.1, which means that there are some students that took more classes, which you can do. You just have to pay for it. So, and then what I try to do is on the right hand side, give you a sense of the courses that seem to be super popular. But anyways, gives you a sense of the broad range of courses that we have. So now let's go into more the professional track. And within the professional track on the next slide, we see the co-op program. This is a program we have, one professor, Ted, who's in charge of the co-op program. So what he does is tries to work with students to find the up to 6-month co-op program or program companies that you can work with during your time here at Brown. And once again, this is typically during the academic year. You're typically enrolled in a 1 engineering course to get experiential learning credit, and one of your 8 credits would be applied towards this program. So that's a very strong program. Then on the next page, what we do is I just grab something of what a STEM co-op panel that they're doing. So this is one where we're bringing back people who've done it to then talk to the students to say, okay, well, how do you do it? Like, what what are the different ways that you can go in. And oh, by the way, you can, a lot of students bring their companies because like all you need to do is you can find a company on your own. We have a lot of companies that we work with to try and help you get that position. But once again, we're flexible where if you bring one, I really quite honestly, I just have to approve it for you. If it's one of our existing relationships, you don't have to worry about it, and then we'll get approved without any options at all. So that covers more of the professional side. If we go to more of the PhD side, from a research option perspective, you've got tons. You've got all the labs within APMA, engineering, CS, or really anywhere in the university. We have a Carney Institute for Brain Research. Some of our students have done research in that lab as well. And then the labs are funded, so you can get lab funding, UTRAs, you get a Hazeltine Innovation Fund that you can get funding to do the research. And then typically the process that I always recommend is identify the research that you want to do, research the professors and labs, identify 3 to 5 labs, then reach out to the professor and also the lab personnel, and then secure funding, and then ideally publish findings. So that's just at a high level what I recommend from a research perspective. And then the next page is a specific example of a research option that you can do. Victoria, if you go to the next page with there we go. And this is just one example where they're looking for first-year master's students to really participate in this program that gives you like a ton of training about the program and then gets you involved in the research associated with this specific program. So from that perspective, it's really helpful. So if we go to the next slide, you can tell that I've covered a lot of information and you have a lot of options, so many different options that sometimes it's really hard to sort through all these different options. So here are all the people that can help you sort through this stuff. So at the end of the day, you can always come to me. I'm the program director to talk about really any aspect of the program. From a career perspective, there's people that are there to help you. From an administration perspective, there's people, if there's any administrivia detail that they have troubles with to talk to. So those are the key people that are here for you. So you get a lot of attention, a lot of help whenever you need it. And really the only thing that's on you is just reaching out to help. That's what I always say is especially with the first year master's students, they should just, if anything, reach out more for help. They're too shy sometimes. But anyways, that's about the program. I will turn it over to Victoria for the rest of the agenda.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Mike. So I want to talk a little bit more about the resources that we have for master's students more broadly at Brown. Mike did a great job describing some of them, but we definitely have a lot going on. So I want to take a moment to talk about our location. Brown is in Providence, Rhode Island. Rhode Island is the smallest state in the United States, small but mighty. So lots to do, a ton of restaurants. Providence is well known in the Northeast for having really great restaurants. We have a culinary institute in the area that drives that. We've got also a really great art scene in Providence. The Rhode Island School of Design definitely helps drive that. Brown has a lot of really great art programs. And then just in general, there's some theaters, concert venues, things like that if you're interested. Other things to do that are close to campus, we've got the Roger Williams Zoo. We've got a lot of green space in the city because Providence is a small city. I mean, in comparison to some of the larger metro areas, even that you might be familiar with, Providence is fairly small. So everything's pretty easily accessible, but there's also a ton of green space. Anything that you really need is going to be within 20 minutes of where you live. So Providence is great. Mike, do you have any thoughts about Providence? I should probably ask you too, like, you're
Well,
so
what's interesting is what I hear from the students is, well, no, number one, it's a big foodie town. Like the restaurants here, if you're like fans of the Belly app, I know a lot of the students love the food because we have like great Italian food in Federal Hill and some Michelin rated restaurants. So it's excellent food. But the other thing that people maybe aren't aware of is the fact that Brown is located in what's called the Northeast Corridor. So a lot of students love popping up to Boston, which is an hour train ride away, or popping down to New York City or DC on the train, and New York City is only like 3 hours away. So that's a great option. And in fact, there's some times where students will, let's say, want to work at MIT or want to work at Harvard's labs, and they've been able to get access to that because once again, it's pretty close, and so you can pop up to, let's say, if you're interested in going to MIT for your PhD, what better experience than to work at one of the MIT labs that you're really interested in, and that's something that students have had. So it's really, as Victoria said, we're small in like a certain region, but we're very close to big cities, and students really take advantage both from a professional or even from a personal perspective. There's a ton of students that go up to Boston for concerts or New York City for concerts and sporting events and things like that. So that's the only thing I would add to it.
Absolutely. Also, I was on a call yesterday and somebody had a fun fact that Providence actually has more restaurants per capita than New York City does, which is a really interesting fun fact. And I think just speaks to that a lot. So that's Providence. So you can see this is a map of Providence, all of the sort of surrounding neighborhoods. Brown University is located in the College Hill area as well as downtown in the Jewelry District. So we have like a pretty broad footprint in Providence, but you can see what that looks like here. The little hearts are over areas of the city where students tend to live, work, take classes. So, this is sort of the area that I'm talking about that's really easily accessible by public transportation, walking, biking. The city is definitely very bike friendly. You get free ridership on the RIPTA buses, the Rhode Island Public Transit Authority buses, as a Brown student. So there's also no cost to you for that. But I would definitely say the most frequented neighborhoods by our students, of course, College Hill, but then also Wayland Square, Fox Point, downtown are definitely some of the big ones. I also want to highlight our centers and offices. So, as a master's student, you are a member of the broader Brown community. So, we have a lot of resources for you that we will connect you with through the Department of Professional or Master's and Professional Programs. The Department of Master's and Professional Programs is housed in the School of Professional Studies. The Center for Master's Student Excellence is also housed in the School of Professional Studies. And that's sort of your hub for master's resources, student affairs, career and professional development. We partner with the departments, like School of Engineering, for instance, on a lot of activities. So that's sort of a little bit more about us. We'll talk more about those resources later. But then we have student health and wellness services. That includes counseling services, well visits, things like that. Religious life, of course, the Office of Diversity and Inclusion, the Sheridan Center for Teaching and Learning, which is a great resource for students who need sort of accommodations in the classroom. There's a writing center. They offer an English language preparation course for folks who need to sort of brush up on their academic English before classes start, before they start their master's program. So really a lot in the way of support in the centers and offices around campus. The Center for Master Student Excellence Student Affairs team specifically is going to be the best resource for our master's students for any student affairs issues. So any academic issues that come up, leaves of absence, uh, advising, things like that. The Center for Master Student Excellence is definitely the first place you want to start. We have funding for students to be able to attend conferences through our student affairs budget, things like that. We're here to help you with. A little bit more about career and professional development. We have these sort of layers of support at Brown. So, of course, your department is going to be a great place for you to start. We've got professors of the practice, faculty who've been in industry, folks who've gone on to get PhDs from places that you might also be interested in going on to getting a PhD from. So, your department is a great place to start. But I will say the Division of Masters and Professional Programs, who will partner with your department, is a great place for you to get that one-on-one attention to start your job search process once you get to campus. So we put on workshops, resume writing, cover letter writing, optimizing your LinkedIn profile, mock interviews. We also offer STEM specific career advising. We have companies visit campus to recruit from our undergraduate and graduate programs. Beyond the Division of Masters and Professional Programs, we also have the Center for Career Exploration. We use Handshake, so any learning opportunities that we have on campus for recruitment. You'll find in the Handshake app. And then, of course, one of the great perks about being a Brown University student is that we have an incredible alumni base. So those alumni are really involved at Brown and helping our students. So now I want to dive a little bit into the application requirements, and I'll start by talking about our holistic review process. So we do look at all of the aspects of your application, or I should say the admission committee looks at all aspects of your application when they're making a decision. So they were taking into consideration things like your academic readiness, which of course includes your GPA, but it's also the grades that you've gotten in individual and related courses to your program. We look to make sure that you have the academic background that you need to be successful. So things like a math sequence, engineering backgrounds, broadly making sure that you are set up for success if you're admitted into the program. We look at your research and work experience. They just sort of add to your application. They're not necessarily required, but it's good to know if you do have those experiences, sort of how that might translate into your master's program. We want to hear about your goals as they pertain to your master's degree. So when you're crafting your personal statement, make sure that you're talking about Brown specifically, and Brown's computational engineering and science program specifically. How is our program going to help you meet your professional and your academic goals? We're also going to require 3 letters of recommendation. They should be detailed. The people who are recommending you should know you as a person. I mean, whether or not they've taught you in the classroom, supervised you at work, it should be more than just sort of, the student was in the top 10% of the class that I taught. They should really be able to talk about you as a member of the classroom community and how successful you'll be in Brown's master's program. We'll talk a little bit more about the application requirements. So first, we're going to require your transcripts. You are not required to submit official transcripts. We will accept unofficial transcripts for your application. However, if you do end up matriculating at Brown, you will be required to submit an official transcript with your degree conferral information. And if you are an international student, or if you attended an institution outside of the United States for your undergraduate degree, we would also require you to submit a credential evaluation, but that wouldn't be required until the time you matriculate. So like I said, for your application, your unofficial transcripts are fine. Your CV or your resume, which will outline your academic and your work experience, your personal statement, which talks about a lot of the things we said earlier, why Brown's computational engineering program, what are your goals, and how does your background align with the program and those goals. 3 letters of recommendation required. This is a sticking point for some students. They'll submit an application with 2 letters and think that's probably good enough. We need all 3 letters in order to be able to consider your application. Standardized testing, GRE is not required. However, if you don't speak English as your native language, we may require you to submit the TOEFL or the IELTS, which I'll talk about in just a moment. I want to walk us through the deadlines too. So we have a fall and we have a spring intake. You can see the deadlines, it's a very screenshotable slide. I think that the most important point is that if you're interested in applying for spring, that deadline is really right around the corner. We want to make sure that you're getting all your materials in on time. You have until 2 weeks after the application deadline to be able to submit any additional materials, but you do need to submit your application by that application deadline. So like I said earlier, the GRE is not required for computational engineering. However, if you do not speak English as your native language and you do not or will not have a degree from an institution where English is the sole language of instruction, then we will require you to submit English language proficiency exams. We only accept the TOEFL and the IELTS to satisfy that requirement. Next steps, of course, if you're interested in applying, start your application, especially if you're interested in spring, start that sooner rather than later. We have a ton of events coming up, so keep an eye on your email. You'll hear more about sort of our larger events talking about the Brown community. We invite folks across Brown to come and talk about the way that their work intersects with our master's student population. If you want to hear more from Mike, you can schedule an individual appointment with him. The QR code is here. That links out to his calendar if you want to schedule some time to talk more in detail about the program. Make sure that you're submitting those materials by the deadline, and then keep in mind what those deadlines are. So that being said, give folks a second if they want to scan that QR code. But if you do have any questions, I'd start submitting them into the chat now and we can start getting at those. Follow us on social media. I always say this is a great way to see what is being offered on a day-to-day basis, not just by the School of Engineering, but also by the master's programs in general. So definitely take a look at that. We have a ton of guest speakers come through. Our student affairs team does a really great job of putting on social events as well. So they'll do a monthly yoga on the green, where they'll bring in a local yoga practitioner to teach yoga to our master's students. They'll do a partner with a brewery to offer like a happy hour. There's a lot of activities that they're putting on, both social and academic. Stay connected with us. If you have questions about the application process, you can email us. If you have any questions about the programs in general, you're welcome to email enginegrad@brown.edu. Oops. So that being said, I think we are ready to start taking some questions. I'm going to pull up the ones that were asked in advance of the session. All right. If a student has a background in a different discipline of engineering, how can they apply that to the computational engineering program? Is that acceptable?
Oh, 100%. Yeah, it really, we're pretty agnostic on the type of engineering that you do. It doesn't make a difference. Um, and typically what happens is that somebody takes in engineering courses, and what would typically happen, I'll give you like the way that it would make sense of why you would apply to the program, is that you didn't get many CS classes. You couldn't fit many CS classes into it, because in a computational engineering master's, what you're doing is you're picking up a lot of, let's say, artificial intelligence, machine learning piece. So all we want is like some STEM background. And once again, it could be engineering, it could be math, it could be anything. And feeling that if you got a STEM background with a good GPA, you'll be able to pick up on the computational piece of it, to be able to do that. So we have found that people with any type of engineering is fine, any type of science degree, any type of math degree, any type of really computer science. It all seems to work. Now, I will say what's interesting is most people complain about the math, because you'll typically take like a math course or two. They find that the math course is harder than what they've used to, because the math at Brown tends to be a little bit more theoretical. Even when it's applied math, it's still a little more theoretical. But no, there's no constraint. If you've got an engineering degree, great. That's what we want.
Fantastic. Mike, can you talk a little bit more about how funding works specifically for the computational engineering program, if students are interested in scholarships?
Yeah, no, great question. Yeah, we understand that this is a huge financial commitment for students, and obviously for students, the different sources of funding would be, obviously you just pay for it. That's a source of funding. We also have opportunities for being like a TA or RA. So the TA being a teaching assistant in the class, the RA being like a research assistant, so you get some funding from that as well. We also offer scholarships to students. They do typically come in the form of needs-based scholarships. So what we do is, when Victoria was talking about the application, we ask you if you could fill out some financial information if you're interested in a needs-based scholarship. Then we use the scoring that comes off that to then provide scholarshiping around that base. But we don't really have any merit-based scholarships. We find that that's a bit too hard to sort through from the vast reaches of all these qualified candidates. So that's basically what's available. But once again, if you want to talk further, definitely schedule some time and we can go into more detail around that. But that's typically how I do it. And typically I'm the one that's sorting through like making the decisions on the funding. So you know, it's not Victoria. You don't bug Victoria, bug me about the scholarships because I'm responsible for the budget.
Fantastic. Well, that's all the questions that we had from this session. Thank you everyone so much for joining. Thanks, Mike, for the excellent presentation. Learned a lot about the program. If anyone needs anything, they're more than welcome to email myself. I can put you in contact with Mike, email Mike directly. We're both very open to chatting with folks about Brown and the program more specifically. So have a great rest.
Yeah, and I would say that like for me, you know, what I really did because normally I don't open up my calendar to people, but what I found is last year I spent a lot more time talking to students that were interested in the program because it's a very complex program, it's a very complex decision, and it's hard to kind of go through. But I think the more conversations we have, the better off in terms of, you know, ideally you filling out your application, getting accepted into the program, then making the decision between, you know, potentially this program and other programs. Because there's a lot of good computational engineering programs out there. It is it is the hot degree now. It does seem to be the hot degree. So happy to chat with anybody around that. And I always enjoy just learning from people about their backgrounds.
Awesome. Well, thanks for that, Mike. Great offer. I love that you're opening up your calendar to everyone. That being said, have a great rest of your day and enjoy.
Thank you. Take care. Bye.
Bye.